dad was on HMS Ark Royal, HMS Protector and HMS Scorpion. The best thing about my dad being in the Navy is every time he gets a ship and takes command of it, he brings it in dock and shows us all the rooms.
One horrible thing is when we all say goodbye to Dad and he goes on the plane, and it's really upsetting because he's going away for 4 to 6 months.
Usually straight after Dad deploys, there's always a couple of weeks of denial, maybe even why is it me that has to not have my dad here.
And I remember my dad coming back, which was amazing. So many happy memories, laughter, parties. My mum and dad always threw a huge celebration when my dad came back.
My husband was about to go away on a NATO deployment, and whilst he was away, the ship ran aground.
My worst moment probably in the Navy was the day I ran HMS Grafton aground, which resulted in my court-martial.
The one memory that went through my mind was that he would miss seeing his first little baby being born.
My world opened up underneath my feet. That was it. My wife at the time was 8.5 months pregnant.
Now, the mast at Ganges was also used for recreational purposes, and any boy could climb anywhere on it that he wanted without supervision at all. And it was a place of solace. You could climb up to the top, you could be out of the way from all the orders and the hurly-burly of Ganges and just sit there in your own little world.
The proudest ones, it was the commissioning of the submarines. One I remember in particular was the commissioning of HMS Porpoise.
And I like to think I'm possibly the only chap that's ever stood on the button and smoked the player's Navy Cup fag.
I think my proudest moment still, and the moment in which I feel the greatest pride, was passing out of Dartmouth as a commissioned officer.
I was so proud. He came and stood next to me and squeezed my hand. We sang Eternal Father.
I think the memory that tugs at my heartstrings the most is undoubtedly the decommissioning of graders.
We actually played it at my husband's funeral. I just felt so proud. I thought my heart would burst.
I was involved specifically in command of a towed array frigate, making sure that we knew where the Soviet submarine force was. And it was testing work, it was secret work, it was exciting work, and we did everything but press the trigger.
We all knew it was pretty much for real. We'd all sort of heard that the Belgrano had been sunk.
The peculiarity of naval warfare is that when you're wearing anti-flash gear, all you can see is eyes.
We knew pretty quickly that the air raid that was coming in was for us.
And you spend all day being shot at. You can see a narrative of feeling and experience in each other's eyes, which was mostly relief that we'd survived many of the attacks, but turning to anguish when we saw Ardent being bombed for the 3rd or 4th time, disappearing into massive flames.
You could feel the shudders rippling through the ship, the bombs hitting, the rockets flying through the superstructure.
Only twice did I ever see my father really upset. That was when we lost Mother and when I joined the Navy.
At Mers el-Kabir, which is the port of Iran, there were 2 fairly new battle cruisers and 2 battleships. And it was the duty of the Admiral, Admiral Somerville, in HMS Hood, to fire on those ships.
He seemed to know that I was going to have to go through some really rough times. And when I joined up eventually, he just broke down, and that was the only thing as I can remember of it, really.
We actually killed 1,297 French sailors, which was one of the most tragic events, quite frankly, of the Second World War.
We were used on the Russian convoy runs, and on one day we were bombed by 200 German dive bombers and torpedo bombers.
You could have walked from the Isle of Wight across to Cherbourg without getting your feet wet.
We were singled out for an attack, and all of the dive bombers concentrated on the Empire Lawrence.
We arrived, we were very slow overnight, about 2.5 knots, so that we arrived on the French coast the very hours of the morning, just as it was getting light.
The next thing I knew, I was deep down in the Arctic, and it was freezing cold.
The first wave went in, they were just absolutely slaughtered. There was nothing left of them. I mean, there was 2,000 men just there laying dead.
I knew I could only last for about 10 minutes, otherwise you died.
All you could hear really was them crying out for their mums. You heard them crying out, "Mum, Mum," that's all you could hear all the time. And you couldn't do nothing for them. I mean, you just had to carry on, because simple reason, if you started to try and do anything for them, you'd be laying alongside them as well.